What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunched Boxing News, and as you guys heard by now, Joyce to fight the winner of Anthony Joshua versus Oleksandr Usyk after being named the mandatory challenger. Joyce has officially installed as mandatory challenger for the WBO heavyweight title and will take on the winner of Anthony Joshua and Oleksandr Usyk for the belt. Okay. Joyce climbed to the second in the WBO rankings with his victory over Daniel Dubois last November and will test himself against former challenger Carlos Takam at Wembley Stadium or Wembley Arena this weekend. It was confirmed on Tuesday that Joshua will defend his IBF, WBO, WBA titles against Usyk on September 25th. Joyce will now be next in line with his promoter, Frank Warren, confirming the 35-year-old is now the WBO's new mandatory challenger. Joyce's focus for time being, however, remains on Takam, a former opponent of Joshua back in 2017. Wow. He says, Joyce, I have to deal with what's in front of me right now, Joyce said. He said, I can't be thinking too far ahead because that's when you end up getting caught. So you have to deal with what's in front of you, and then you have to move on to bigger and better things. Joshua fulfilled his IBF mandatory against Kubrat Pulev last December, and Joyce's status as a WBO mandatory could potentially provide another obstacle in the way of a unification fight between Joshua and Tyson Fury. Fury is set to meet Deontay Wilder in their trilogy fight in October. Let me counterpunch. First of all, congratulations to Joyce for being the mandatory of the WBO. Okay, I have no problem with that. I was thinking and wondering what was going on with Joyce because Joyce beat Daniel Dubois, but Daniel Dubois, I think, had another opportunity or a closer opportunity at the WBA strap regular. Okay, of Trevor Bryan. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what about Joyce? So this is good for the WBO. However, I think because of the WBO, they're getting more like the IBF. And that could be a good thing and a bad thing. And let me explain. Joshua is fighting Oleksandr Usyk for what mandatory belt? The WBO. So if Joyce becomes the mandatory for the WBO, it's like, okay, he's already fulfilling his mandatory obligation fight with Oleksandr Usyk. So is it to think that because it wasted so much time, him negotiating with Fury, now he has to fight Oleksandr Usyk on the WBO and then turn around and then fight Joyce on the WBO as well? Because it would seem like to me would be mandatory, then voluntary, then mandatory. And then hopefully when he fulfills his obligations with the WBO by beating Oleksandr Usyk, if he can do so, then he could fight Tyson Fury for the voluntary, which would be the unification if Fury beats Wilder. So if Fury doesn't beat Wilder and then it's Wilder, we can already see how this is going to go, because if the WBO forces Joshua to fight Joyce or get stripped after he's already fought Usyk on the WBO, I would think that would be a rather aggressive. Okay, I think that would be very aggressive, like really unreasonable. Okay, because you've already fought on the WBO. What about the other belts? What if the IBF says, okay, well, hey, it's time for our guy, which the IBF has no number one. Okay, so then you have the WBA. You know what I mean? What, Trevor Bryan or Danny Dubois, if they duke it out. So it's a lot going on with that, because the fight that everyone wants to see is the undisputed. But if the WBO forces that hand, then the WBO itself would be an obstacle for making the undisputed fight. They would be blocking the fight more than anybody else. And then what will happen, a guy or the WBC, whoever that champion will be, who comes the victor out of Fury or Wilder, if it's Wilder, he will already say, hey, see, I told you so. Anthony Joshua was already talking about ducking. We knew he was ducking. We heard he was ducking. So there we go. So this is no surprise to us. Let's move on and fight some bum. You see what I mean? So this could be a problem. Another thing you think about, okay, Joyce was going to fight Oleksandr Usyk for a what do you call it, a eliminator, right, to fight for that belt. Now I guess the WBO has stuck Takam in there, and now Joshua has to fight whoever wins out of Takam or Joyce. That's the only thing. That's the only way that I can see why the WBO would be doing what they're doing. Okay, because the WBO is the mandatory or the eliminator fighter is Oleksandr Usyk. That's why he earned his spot. Now, it was wrong for what they did to Usyk to make Usyk turn around and fight Joyce instead of fighting Joshua in the first place. Whereas now he fights Joshua and he gets his fight. Now they're saying you got to fight Joyce. You see what I mean? I think it's a bit aggressive on the WBO's end. Not saying they're completely all out of line, because I like what they're doing with Crawford and Sean Porter down at welterweight at 147. But, I think them doing that now and giving him problems if he can't fight this voluntary or try to get all the belts at one time, I think the WBO is only selfishly thinking about them instead of the other sanctioning bodies or the other obligations due to the unified champion, which is Anthony Joshua, which he's been a champion for a long time, minus 6 months of 2019. Okay? And he's definitely been a WBO champion since 2018. So for over 3 years, he's been that champion minus 6 months. So, But anyway, that's my counterpunch on it. Again, congratulations to Joyce. I like Joyce. I look forward to covering the fight Saturday with him fighting Takam. Takam is a tough opponent. You guys tell me what you think about Joyce being the mandatory to fight Anthony Joshua or Oleksandr Usyk, whoever wins. Tell me what you think. Please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.